Alright, welcome back to Comic Book Wednesdays, a weekly series where we discuss comic books. We're your hosts. I'm Ian.
I'm Al.
And I'm Shane.
Alright, and this week we're back, but this time with a new book, picked by our very own Shane.
Woo-woo!
We're doing the Transformers Till All Are One by and I apologize for butchering your name, Margaret Scott. I know we just discussed on how to say their name, but I just don't remember what we said.
Marguerite Scott, I think.
Marguerite? Yeah, there we go. But yeah, we did issues 1, 2, and 3 out of 12.
Mm-hmm. So, wanted to ask you guys, first initial thoughts. What do you both think?
So far the story seems good. I'm having a little trouble, like we talked about before we started, in differentiating between the characters.
That's fair.
Just because they all look the same, but other than that, it seems pretty good.
Ian, what about you? Same thing?
I like it. I think it's a pretty cool book. I kind of like the whole political turmoil. I'm really fascinated as to where Cybertron is right now. If this is even, it is Cybertron, right? This is where they are.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, and I want to know more. I do have to say I was a little confused for a couple reasons. One, just like Alex was saying, everybody looks the same, and I really think that's more like a lot of the Decepticons look the same because they're all these mute colors. At least I know who's good guy, who's bad guy, but I feel like even then lines are blurred because we're seeing this world where Starscream is in charge. So I don't know, it's I've always known Starscream to be the jerk. So
Yeah, and that's going from the fact of for me only having experience with the movies, so never really saw anything of Starscream other than him being an asshole.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting take to get. I mean, he still acts like an asshole, it seems like, but it's a different type of asshole.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. And I'll give you something to kind of help with this. This is Cybertron. When they mentioned Iacon, that's one of the cities on the planet. That's one of the biggest cities that survived the war. Cadmus and some of the other things that they reference, those are different planets. So this is post-war. So Cybertron has some colonies out there. There are other Transformer planets out there that were colonized by the original 13 Primes. And when the war ended, Cybertron was like, "Hey, everybody, come home. We're not going to kill each other anymore. We're trying to, everybody, please come home." And a lot of people took him up on that offer, which is another reason why you kind of get Windblade being like, "Oh God, I can't believe I came back to this bullshit. You guys dragged me in here for this nonsense." And that's why her and Starscream are kind of butting heads.
Right.
And Starscream being a Decepticon is still very much a factor in people not liking him.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So he was voted in initially. He was the one that kind of was like, "No, I'll take over. I'll prove that I can be a good leader." Megatron's not in the picture, Optimus is not in the picture. And so that's why you have a lot of scenes with Bumblebee talking to Starscream as kind of like a advisor, more or less.
Is Optimus and Megatron gone at this point, or are they just not on Cybertron?
So at this point in the comics, Optimus went back to Earth. He his motivation was basically okay, there's no reason for me to be a general in a time of peace. He lost the matrix of leadership, and he was like, "I'm just gonna kind of do my own thing." And he realized that a lot of the interactions with Earth harmed humans, and so he was like, no, I'm gonna establish like a colony on Earth and try and help any Cybertronians, Decepticon or Autobot, doesn't matter who, on Earth to kind of like make them so that they have another place to live. Megatron, he's presumed killed in action. They really don't know what happened to Megatron, but like the previous issues kind of explained that like Megatron kind of found a way back to life and was like, you know what, fuck this. I'm not dealing with none of this. I want to see, I Megatron's whole thing was like he believes that Starscream is going to be a terrible leader. And he was like, the planet's going to be destroyed, and I'll come back to rebuild when the ashes are there, because he thinks that Starscream is just going to blow it all up, and so he just left.
Gotcha.
But with the political stuff that we were kind of getting into, like that's where everything is like this very post-war, like how do we form a government? How do we get along? Is like kind of these first three issues are kind of touched on, in my opinion.
Yeah, I and I kind of like that. It's like there's this like we have to put our differences aside in order to try to make this work, and I find it fascinating that though the victim is a former Decepticon or is a Decepticon, um,
Mm-hmm.
the one that's like murdered at the beginning and who were like following. What's his name again, Shane? What's that character?
I always blank this. Give me just a moment. I'm gonna pull it
I
up.
think it starts with an S. Um,
Let's see. Uh,
but yeah, as you're doing that, to kind of add to the confusion that I was having, Alex, the the villains like Onslaught and all those other
Yeah.
Decepticons, they're a subsect of Decepticons. Like they're their own thing that combined into one um, like bot. And Shane explains it better than I do, but that's why they're so
yeah.
concerned about their buddy is because they need him to transform into this big
Gotcha.
megabot.
Interesting. I had no
So
idea
all of
about
the
that.
ones, yeah. So they mentioned like it wasn't. It's not really something that's gonna come up unless you like, and for further issues. But it just adds a little bit of context that like I think it's Savage. I'll get to the name in a minute. But like all of the ones that are like lightly green, like kind of that like lime greenish purple color that all look the same, those are all combiners. So all five, like I think it's five or six of them, all morph into one robot. And the reason that they're looking for their friend is because they're all linked in some sort of way. And so their mind, they're like, oh well, no, one of our like, basically one of ourselves just died. We
Right.
want to know what happened to him. And so like I'm really glad that you guys bring up the fact that the Decepticons all look alike because the book is going to explain that later on, and the reason behind it is insane. I can't wait for us to get there.
Another thing I thought was kind of interesting was the badgeless ones.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it seems like nobody really trusts any of them, which I get, but it's weird that Starscream's kind of like using them as his own personal little army until what was it, Ironhide like steps
Mm-hmm.
in, and it doesn't seem like Ironhide really has a clue what's going on there.
No, he really doesn't. Like he's literally there to just be like, hey, we're trying to keep the peace. We're trying to make it so that the planet like doesn't shit itself to death. And he literally volunteered. Like that was the way that I understood it. Is he literally volunteered, being like, "Hey, I'll help you do this. I have no idea what I'm doing here, but
Right.
if this is gonna make everything better, I'm all for it."
Yeah, uh, I kind of see like I look at it like
Swindle, that's
this.
his name.
Swindle is the guy who dies. Yeah,
Yes.
I see this story as very like, at least so far, there. I look at when it was written, 2016, 2017, and the kind of like things that were happening, at least in our country at that time, as far as like law enforcement, things like that goes. And there's a lot of
That's a great
parallel
point.
there. Um, so I see that kind of like, I don't know if the author was trying to touch on that at all, but it kind of felt like it to me at least.
Damn, that's a really good point. I didn't even think of
Yeah.
that. Wow.
Um, that's
Pardon
just
me
the
for being
vibe I'm
silent. You just
getting.
blew my mind a little bit.
And like, nobody's trusting the badgeless, and I'm guessing badgeless means they're not Autobot and they're not Decepticon.
That's what I took it
Yes.
as.
Yeah. They're renouncing basically their allegiances and basically saying that they're neutral.
In order to be a police force, they do this.
Yeah,
Now,
Now,
did I read
because
it correctly that they had like a friggin' hollow projector and uh like a secondary voice box or something, so they didn't like they just all sounded the same and stuff like that? Was that correct?
yeah, no, that was correct. So like, not all of them do like have that in the beginning. Like that's something that they eventually like add. Like it has Ironhide's training them to like you're the very individualistic, but that is something that they relinquish to basically be neutral. So like you have Autobots and Decepticons who are basically like, hey, we don't want to show up and like go and arrest somebody or go and like pursue a crime because people are going to be like, oh, you're only coming after me because you're an Autobot, or you're only coming after me because you're an evil Decepticon and you want to break the law,
Right.
you want to abuse me. Like they all do that as a form of being like, hey, we're a police force, we're not, one thing or another, we're here to just keep the peace.
right. So, and it seems like whoever is framing the police for these murders is trying to sow discord and make sure that this new police force fails.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely kind of the vibe that I'm getting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting.
Um, yeah,
If it
it's. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, if it helps for the ones that all look the same color, the main ones to pay attention to would definitely be Starscream, Windblade, the one who looks like she has makeup on her face.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those two, the story is gonna eventually be focused around them. There's gonna
Okay.
be other characters, but like the central part of the story is gonna be between the two of them.
Gotcha.
That makes sense to me. It kind of feels like this is very much a Starscream story to me, but I think that's only my bias is because I know him more than I know Windblade.
Yeah, Windblade was new for me when I first started reading this, and I've really kind of grown to respect her.
How much do these comics like go into as far as like the old cartoon? You know what I mean? Like, or like, does that tie into any of this stuff, or is that its own entity?
Um, the cartoon is kind of what started it. So like the way that the comics did it, at least for IDW's run, is they took concepts from the cartoon and like tweaked it a little bit to make it more fit their kind of like world building that they're doing.
Okay.
And so like you'll have, in the beginning of like IDW's run, you had like the war and coming to Earth and like the wikis and like all of that. Like they pulled that directly from the source material, but then
Okay.
as the comic kind of got on, it took on a new life of its own. But they definitely did start with that.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And when you say the cartoon, this is like the original like '80s cartoon, right?
Yeah,
That
um, they tried to model the beginning bits off of the original '80s cartoon.
that's pretty cool. I'm into that. I like that a lot. Though I have to say, it's not something that I've watched a whole ton of.
No, I don't remember watching a lot of it when I was younger. I was definitely more like Ninja Turtles and Ghostbusters and stuff like that. But
Fair.
uh, I looking back on it, there was I can't even tell you I know a lot of the characters that came out of it or any of that stuff. So it's interesting to see it on a different media source.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I was I'm by the time I was done the third issue of the comics we are reading today, I was looking forward to seeing what happens next. So it did hook me.
I'm glad.
Um, so I was happy with that. Um, I do have to say though, I was really confused at first, Shane. It starts with this
That's
like,
fair.
it shows you, it shows the Decepticon, like dying, and then it shows this huge splash page where it throws a bunch of characters at you all at once, and I'm going to tell you, um, between not knowing who they were and then also the way we're reading it doesn't have the zoom feature that the other apps that we were using had. I was so
Mm.
confused because I
Yeah,
had
that
to
was a little tough.
haphazardly go across that page and try to follow the text boxes. Um,
Another thing that got me was for some reason my phone decided it was a good idea to close out of the web page that we were reading it from, and I'm like, God damn it, I lost where I was, and I had to search through again. But that's all, issues on different part.
No, it's fair. And I'm glad that it isn't too terrible, but I also completely understand that because like it's my option like going through the Kindle, going through like the Kindle app and Comixology made it a little bit confusing because in the Kindle app it's labeled as like Transformers issue blah 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 through blah blah blah, so it's not labeled as Till All Are One.
Right.
And so it just like kind of smooshes it all together because it's in these big volumes with the
right.
ones that I have downloaded. And so like finding this online, it was like, okay, I can scan the comics or do it digitally because like the way it's going to go is we're going to read all of the numbered issues and then the annual is the end of it. So we won't touch the annual until the very end.
Gotcha.
It's absolutely fair. I
But I
but
completely understand what you guys are talking about because like it definitely does have that like kind of weirdness to it where like you get the Decepticon that like first died and you're in that weird like moment of like, okay, do I, what's kind of going on here, like, why did this person just die, and then instant political turmoil, which can be really confusing.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. But I mean, like, it does clear. I say, like, by the time, like I said, by the time we're at the third issue, I kind of get the gist of what's happening, and I can follow some of the characters. And I did like that they started showing circles with the characters' faces in them in the beginning of the issues. I thought that
Yeah,
was
the roll
absolutely,
call.
yeah, absolutely key. You
That
know what I mean?
oh my god, it saved me at least 3 times where I could go back and look at that. I was like, what the fuck am I looking at here? Who is this?
Absolutely. I feel the same way.
So I actually have a question for you guys, like knowing like this being like your first introduction to like the world of Transformers,
Mm-hmm.
with Cybertron and like some of the designs and things like that. Are there any characters that stand out to you where you like the design a little bit more, or are you just kind of getting a feel for everything? I'm just curious.
It, I like actually. Onslaught, and then the other one who joined the police force, the Decepticon that was who was kind of like
Yeah. What was his
Iron.
name?
Yeah, Big Battle or something weird.
Brawler or something.
Brawler.
Was it Brawler? Was he the one who
I think he was the one that joined the
police? The two of them
the faces
have
one
like
or
this.
badges.
They have like this visor look and like a mask, and I kind of like that. And they're kind of like these bulkier looks. I enjoy that a lot.
What did you guys think of the whole like him joining and then trying to get all that information on where the guy is? Like that when I first read that I was like, "Oh shit." Like managed to, get in there and get all the info. That was kind of cool.
It happened
Uh,
faster than I thought it would.
Yeah. That's fair.
Good.
the one character that kind of like stood out to me, because he reminded me of Optimus was the Wheeljack character. I thought he was a fun looking character. I
Is he in
don't.
that like council?
He was like one of the scientists. They say it says scientist, Cybertronian scientist, but he I don't know if he was in one of the councils or not.
Okay.
He's got like I said, he's blue, red, and white, and he's got like he looks like Optimus, but he's got like two big things coming off the side of his face.
Yeah, that's Wheeljack.
Yeah,
Oh yeah. He's in the third issue. He's
yeah,
one of the bots that grabbed the guy who was dead.
yeah.
I forget his name. I'm so bad at names.
Well,
No, you're
especially because
okay.
there's so many of them that are new to us.
Yeah, they kind of just throw it all at once. I
I
remember
did like
Starscream.
the Yeah. I did like the twist, for me personally of at the end where, they're going to find this, this dead Destructobot, like this dead Decepticon, and Wheeljack was like, no, hold on, like you may have found that video, but like we weren't trying to kill him, we were trying to help him.
Right.
Like we didn't do that. We were trying to put him together.
I like that.
Were you thinking of Blast Off or?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a lot of names.
Yeah, there is.
I'll get used to it.
Wheeljack, just to tell you guys something funny, like when the new movie came out, Ian, when you were sending me like trailers of it, and I was like, why did they fuck my man's face? That's why I was mad, because this is what Wheeljack looked like, not some like derpy glasses looking motherfucker.
That's awesome.
Like the new movie wasn't bad, but they like that design choice. I was like, I can't get over that because Wheeljack has always had that like faceplate with the fins on the side, and then in the movie they were like, no, we're gonna give him glasses and a mouth. Like how about you just don't? How about that?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see. I'll be honest. I don't really like Transformers that have regular mouths. I like the plate in front of their mouth.
Yeah, me too. No, I don't like the regular mouse all that much either.
Well, it's just kind of weird. Like robots having a regular mouth like that doesn't look right.
They don't need to eat,
Right.
right?
They don't need to eat, but they do consume fuel. That's why, like, you see some of them drinking at that bar.
That's
Like,
fair.
the energon that they consume is basically like their food. Think of it like
Smoothies.
in order for them to transform, in order for them to do anything, they have to have a certain amount of energon in their system, kind of like gasoline in a vehicle. And if that amount is low,
Gotcha.
they can't transform, but they can still like walk around and do shit.
Okay. Okay. Now I have a question for you, and you might be able to answer this. Why do
Sure.
Transformers transform into vehicles that are on Earth if they're aliens from another planet?
Ow! Oh,
I can
I was having
easily
the
answer
same
that,
problem with that too. I'm like, what the fuck? Why are these fucking Transformers car looking and not on Earth?
I can actually answer that pretty with a good comic book answer. In the beginning, like you had people like Wheeljack, Ironhide, Bumblebee, they were all on Earth with Optimus. So they had like more robotic Cybertronian forms, but then went to Earth and got those and like think of it like you can only have one alternate mode. So if they got rid of their Cybertronian mode, they kept their Earth mode. They can't rescan the Cybertronian mode because the Cybertronian like thing that like their default that they were made with is gone. You're essentially erasing one form for another form. People like Windblade who have like that modified helicopter looking bullshit, that's just the way that she was designed. So for Airazor, she's more hawk-like because she chose an animal form. Like different planets and different like the different subsystems of Cybertron, like these different like colonial planets. A lot of them took their influence from Earth after Cybertron was destroyed because there was nothing left for them to scan.
I see.
And so then you have these like modified versions of Earth vehicles because that's their only frame of reference because they basically wiped out their own history.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a really good answer. It answers my question.
No,
So
it is a good question. That's fair.
they only have one skin at a time, call it? Or can they
Yes.
Yeah.
like can they
Most
change as many
Transformers,
times as they want or
most Transformers, and I say like 90% of them, can only do either a robot form or a vehicle form. Now that vehicle form could be like an actual vehicle, or it could be more animalistic. There's a rare case where some of them are triple changers, where they can do 3 different forms, but that requires like an immense amount of power and immense amount of energon to do. Not all of them can do it.
okay.
And then you have the combiners, which like they're able to combine into one like big bot more or less by combining all of their vehicle forms. They become like one big ass robot.
Okay.
But not everybody can do that. That's like a special skill that you had to learn and develop, as well as get special pieces for. Like you have to modify yourself.
Gotcha.
Um, there's a whole like backlog lore in Transformers history about how when it was first discovered that like one of the original primes made a piece that you can install into yourself to do this. Everybody was trying to do it, but it didn't always work because it had to be compatible pieces. You couldn't just like fuse 2 different people together. It had to be like actually compatible. Which
Gotcha.
is why you get like some groups that can and some groups that can't.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know way more about this than I probably should.
It's okay.
uh,
I know that feeling.
Like any going to you out with like Star Wars questions and things like that, I could give you entire like
oh, I'm
faction
sure.
lores and shit like that. So
I'm sure. Yeah, it's that's what your wheelhouse is, so I get it.
but yeah, I am glad that you guys are enjoying it, for now. I hope that in the next couple of issues it does get a little bit more ramped up. We're going to start seeing some sneaky bits.
Yeah, I
It's
can't wait.
definitely interesting. I'm excited to read more.
Yeah. Excuse me. I am too. Um, I think we're gonna enjoy this one. I'm excited.
Me as well.
Yeah, so next week it's going to be 4, 5, and 6.
All right.
All right. Well, that was Comic Book Wednesdays. Thank you everybody for listening. Y'all have a good night.
Peace, y'all.
Good night.